And I certainly agree and have always believed that we as audience members have a responsibility to check what we're seeing. And increasingly now, because those cues are mixed up, almost anything we see, we have to double check and breathe and think. The problem is we are human beings. So those of us who teach news literacy, ourselves can be caught up in a moment because our brains work in a particular way, because our brains are overwhelmed. So yes, we can teach news literacy and we should, but that's not going to solve the problem entirely when the technology is designed to have an emotional pull on us. So the reason that we turn to Facebook is because we have a dopamine hit when we scroll and we see likes and everything else. And certainly when we're in a moment when news is flooding past us and we see news that makes us feel good because it makes us feel connected to those we identify with, whether you're on the left or the right, you are much less likely to be critical. In the same way as you're much less likely to be critical of a photograph. So memes are becoming much more powerful and used a great deal now. If you look at Breitbart, on their Facebook page, they use a lot of visuals, a lot of memes, and that's deliberate because those are shared in much higher numbers than links, because our brains just suddenly see a photo with some text that pulls on our emotional responses and we click share. But it's also happening on the left just as much, maybe not just as much, but we're seeing it on the left and the right. And that's because humans, wherever we sit on the ideological spectrum, are human, and we have brains that override our critical functions unless we're constantly telling ourselves, be critical of this. So Craig Silverman was on the media a couple of weeks back talking about the need to develop emotional skepticism. So I think as much as we need to teach people what a headline looks like and how you can do a reverse image search and how you check where a domain was registered to see if it was created in Macedonia 2 weeks ago, yes, all of that is important. But at the same level, we need to develop emotional skepticism, which says, if I have a good feeling or an angry feeling about a piece of content, stop and breathe, because that means you're much more likely to respond to it in a way that's not skeptical. So I think that's also the sorts of training we should give, and it should also be embedded in the platforms from a design perspective. The platforms are part of the problem, and if we don't think about that and simply say, oh, it's up to us, it's our responsibility, it's our fault that we're sharing false information, we're letting them off the hook. They have designed emotional platforms that respond to our brains in a certain way, and they should help us override what our brain is doing automatically.